Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel, and today I just wanted to have a little talk about my 36-gallon aquarium. So this tank is newly set up in your eyes, but it's actually been running for about 2 months for me because I really wanted to present the video to you guys with the tank up and running, stocked with fish, and the plants have grown in a bit. And it's gone through a lot of phases, and it's by far and away, at this point, my favorite tank in the room. It's exactly what I wanted it to be. I wanted it to be like the centerpiece tank of this room. Like, you walk in, you see all my small escapes, like my pond-style tank, my beta tanks, stuff like that. And then you look and see this, and this is just what draws your attention. This is the biggest tank in the room. And before we get into this, I want to just mention something. So, in my 2 beta tanks that are right there behind me, I recently got a new beta, and I'll be showing you guys to him probably in next week's video. But they're in this tank right here, you probably can't see, but there's a tank right there. They used to house some, just like some miscellaneous fish, just some neon tetras, amber tetras, and some barred pencilfish, which were not appropriate stocking choices for that tank. And so I moved those guys out. They're in a temporary tank downstairs. I'm still wondering what I'm going to do with them, because I don't really have a tank to fit them right now, just because I don't really, they were completely healthy, and they weren't, having any issues in that tank. Just, I felt like they deserved to have a larger home than just, standard 5-gallon, because it's really not appropriate for a fish like that, and they weren't in large schools like they should be. So, if you're wondering in the video you'll see later why there's no tetras in that tank, and now there's a beta in there, that's the main reason. But let's stay on the path of the 36-gallon. So, I set this thing up a while back, and it was pretty smooth sailing from when I first set it up. And I don't exactly know how old this tank is. I'll have to go back and check. But I have pictures of the first days, and I waited for about 2 weeks before I added the first fish inhabitant of this tank. And I actually have a clown pleco in here. He was the very first fish that I was going to add to this tank, just so that he could get the cycle going and just kind of scrape away on low-end algae levels. And he's still in this tank, but he only comes out at night. And sometimes in the morning when I wake up, I come over here, look at this tank with the lights are still off. I can see him kind of grazing on this piece of wood. But it's really helpful to have him in. He really likes eating the wood on this large piece. He doesn't so much pay attention to these smaller pieces. So I got a school of 5 autosinkless in here about a month later, just to, keep working on this algae. There's really not, as you can probably see, there's really not much algae in this tank, and that's mainly due to the fact that I have these low-end algae cleaners, and that I do a 25%, 50% water change every single day for the first week, and still, a few months later, I'm still doing maybe 25% water change every other day. And that's really what's keeping this tank clean and not having big algae issues. There's some just standard nuisance brown algae, but I scrape off what I can, and I leave whatever is left to feed the autosinkless, who are hiding right now. They're usually out and about. It's kind of weird that I can't see them, but I can overlay some footage of them if I see them. But this is just kind of a rambling talk. I just wanted to just talk about this entire tank and just give you guys the specifications. So, it does hold 36 gallons. It is the top fin bow front, and some people might ask if it distorts the view, the bow front. And in some ways, yes, but when you really stand back and look at it, I've never had an issue with the actual distortion of the view looking at my fish, and I kind of like the bow front look, and I like the dimensions of this tank, and it perfectly fits on this dresser right here. So it's pretty much a perfect tank for my needs. It's large, but it's also not huge. It's not a 55-gallon, even though I would be interested in getting one of those one day. But I am running CO2 on this tank, just biological CO2. It's meant for a nano tank, but I'm running it on here just to keep low-end levels of CO2 high enough so that plants can outcompete algae. I am running the stock filtration system on here. I've got just the standard top fin hang-on back system, but I also have a little internal Aquaneat filter running right there. I originally bought that for just a 5-gallon tank as its main filter, but I'm not using it anymore, so I just threw it in there just for a little extra water circulation. I did buy a wave maker for this thing, but I quickly found out that it was way too powerful for a tank like this. If I'm going to use a wave maker, again, if I'm going to use that wave maker, it's going to be in a 55-gallon, like, Hillstream tank. That thing's got a lot of power, way too much for this style tank. For substrate, you guys can check out the full build video on this, but I've got a layer of dirt across the bottom and various nutritious substrate layers capped on top of that, and then just a layer of sand across the top. And it's worked out really well for me. My plants seem to be thriving. Definitely my most successful tank when it comes to just like plant health. Speaking of plants, I've got some really interesting species that I've never tried out in here. And since it's such a big tank, I can have a lot of variety in here. The main showcase of this tank is definitely this Aponegidon ulvaceus. So believe it or not, you know those like beta bulbs that you can buy at like PetSmart or Petco? Those things that they sell as like something you can just pop in your beta tank and you can have a live plant, you know? That's what that is. I bought a few of them, and that's just what they are. They're Aponegidon ulvaceus. They get giant. I do have one ulvaceus that I bought from H2O Plants, and I think there's 3 ulvaceus in that giant clump, but it's sending out flowers and stuff. As you can see, there's actually 2 flowers coming up right now. And it's an awesome plant. It grows so fast, like ridiculously fast, and I really like it. Another new plant that I was trying out here was the Madagascar lace plant, which I'm not having as much success with. Originally, it just exploded in growth, as people would expect from a bulb plant, but it's starting to get this like kind of like brown patches on the leaves, and it's still sending out new leaves and stuff, but it's not super healthy, so I don't exactly know what happened here. It could have been I had this like CO2 diffuser coming up underneath it, and the CO2 might have burnt the leaves before I moved the CO2 diffuser into the back. I also am trying out some various species like banana plants. Never had those before, but I just thought they're kind of a cool little texture right here, and I thought it added quite a bit to this scape, just kind of a little thing. I also have a red tiger lotus right here, and honestly, I don't know what I'm going to do with that red tiger lotus, because it's obviously going to get way too big. It's the perfect size for where it is right now in the tank, just like in between those rocks. Really nice pop of red. And I'm fertilizing it a lot, and I'll get to what I'm dosing in this tank later. But this red tiger lotus is going to get huge, and I'm trying to figure out where I'm going to put it in this scape. Maybe if this Madagascar lace doesn't work out, I'll end up transplanting that to the back. We will see, but for now, the red tiger lotus is growing just right here. It's going to get huge, though. I also have red flame sword, Clinobar sword, Cryptwendati tropica right here, Cryptwendati brown and green, which I got from the 20-gallon high, which is going, the crypts are growing really well in this tank, way better than the 20-gallon. And these are all new species for me, except for, of course, the Wendati. But the Crypt Tropica, the banana plants, the Clinobar swords, the red flame swords, all those are new, and I've not had a single issue with plants in this tank besides, I guess, kind of this Madagascar lace. I also have this Rotala in here that I just had random trimmings that I just put in here, and they've grown quite tall here. They're going to need a little trimming, but I think they had like nice little bunches, and I think it's a really nice accent plant. I'm also trying out a lot of Anubiases here. Believe it or not, I haven't used Anubias in many scapes before, but I've got Barterai, Minima, Nana, just stuff like that. Those certain varieties growing in here, and I really like the look of them. They're super easy, as everyone would suspect, and they're just really good looking plants. I've also trying out a bunch of different crypts in this corner along some Valsinaria that I did rescue from the 20 tall. That's where the Valsinaria came from, and everything in this corner is going really well. Really nice dense mat of plants here. So all in all, plants are growing really well thanks to the injection of CO2 and the lighting, which we'll talk about right now. So the lighting is a Nycrew Classic Planted Plus 36-inch, which fits perfectly across this. This tank did come with a lid and a hood with lighting and stuff, but I decided not to use the lid. So it's a windlass tank, and it's a large enough volume of water that it doesn't evaporate super fast, and since I'm doing water changes so frequently on this tank, I don't even notice the evaporation. And just to add a little bit extra to this tank, I do have the stock lighting that it came with attached, like DIY rigged up to the classic, as you can see. So this is what the tank would have looked like with just the stock lighting. As you can see, super dim, but I do have that stock lighting on there, and this is what it would look like without the stock lighting. Both, I think they work really well in conjunction together, and just like add a little extra brightness to the tank. So I do have 2 lights running on this on a 8-hour photo period, and I really enjoy this tank and all the equipment. It's made it super easy, and definitely a larger tank I would consider easier to keep. Now before we move on to the fish, I just want to finish up what I'm dosing for my plants. So obviously I've got a ton of nutrition in the substrate, which is where they're getting a lot of this growth from, but you can't rely on that forever, so I am dosing fertilizer in here. I do 3 pumps of this H2O Plants Vital all-in-one fertilizer, and H2O Plants did send this to me for free way back in the day when they were generous enough to send me some plants for Escape when I was like at 100 subscribers, and they sent me a pack of plants for free, and they threw this thing in there along with some root tabs, and I was super generous to them, and I've been using this, and I mean, I guess the results speak for themselves. It's an all-in-one fertilizer. I think it looks great. Obviously, they're not sponsoring me or anymore. I mean, I guess sending me plants doesn't really count, but and they're not paying me, obviously, to say that I like their fertilizer, but just out of personal experience, I never really use ferts, but I just figured, okay, it's 1 pump per 10 gallons, 36 gallon. I do 3 pumps every week during my Saturday water change on this tank. We'll just see how it goes, and it seems to be working out fine. No bad algae issues, and the plants seem to be thriving. So let's move on to fish. So what I really, from the start, before I even had this tank, I knew I wanted another angelfish, and because back in the day I had an angelfish in my 20 tall, and I still don't know what happened to him. I just know that he randomly died one day. Maybe he had internal parasites, and it just didn't kill him until way after I bought him, and I just didn't know that he had them until it was too late. But he just really interesting fish, and I knew I wanted them again. So I got a trio of angelfish. So let me see if I can get them to come up here. So you see I've got these 2 larger angelfish, and this one, you can tell them apart really easily, because this guy, ever since he was in the stores, had this kind of bend in his top fin, and I don't know if they're male or female or anything, but I had these fish monitored at the pet store for like 3 months before I bought it. Like, before I even had this tank set up, these fish were in the pet store, and I was watching them, and I was just like, you know, joking with the store employees, like, one day I'll get these guys, and then right before someone bought them, I came in, and I bought these guys, and I said there are 3, and there's this tiny little guy who is a little more shy right here, but I wanted an even trio of angelfish just to, like, balance out aggression or breeding if it does happen, and he's not really coming out, but he likes to move around when feeding. He's just kind of sitting back here. Just a smaller guy. He will eventually grow up to be easily the size of these guys. These guys will still keep growing, of course. And the other fish I have in here are serpe tetras, which is, again, exactly the fish that I wanted from the start when I set up this tank. I just really like their full body look and the red tetra. And I didn't want something like a neon tetra because I need a ton of them, and eventually they just get eaten by these angelfish. Don't try and put angelfish with neon tetra. They'll work out for a while, and then one day your neon tetras are going to start disappearing. That's what happened to my bloodfin tetras and rummy nose tetras in my old tank. My angelfish, just as he grew, he got big enough and decided these guys will fit in his mouth, and he ate them. So these guys are not ever going to be too small that they're going to be eaten. I really like their red pop of color, and they weren't the best looking fish when I bought them. They had really scraggly fins. They're still regrowing them, and I lost 1 out of my 12 that I bought. I have 11 left, and I haven't had any other casualties, and they're all eating well. They are, they're just like standard. They have a little pecking order, and they're still regrowing fins from past disputes. But if any of you long-term subscribers have seen I had, way back in the day, I had 1 serpe tetra, and it's that guy. You see that guy right there? That's like my 2-year-old serpe tetra that I had he was just chilling in the 20-gallon after I broke down my tank way back in the day that I had like a couple serpent tetras in, like, you know, obviously like back when you like, oh, I'll take 3 of that, 3 of that. I bought 2 serpent tetras. One eventually died, but this guy, he's really easy to tell apart from the others because he's just like way more orange. He's that guy right there. And he's still trucking along, and now he has a proper school of tetras to live with the rest of his life out with. And besides the autosynclus and the clown pleco, that really wraps up all the stocking in this tank, besides some miscellaneous snails. I've considered getting corridoras for the base of this tank because lots of waste and just crud kind of accumulates across the bottom of this tank. And although the plants do enjoy that, it helps them get nutrients. It really is important to like get that stuff moving. And even though you can siphon it out, it's just such a tall tank. It's really hard to get down there. So I'm considering adding corridors, but I really don't want to overstock this tank. This is pretty much as far as I'd really want to stock it. I don't want to offset the balance of this tank because things seem to be going really well in here. So I don't know what we'll do about that. Maybe I'll just have to diligently siphon out this tank more often. I do water changes, but I don't siphon as much as I probably should. But that's the complete overview of my 36-gallon. Just a little rambling one-to-one talk with you guys. I figured some of you guys might have wanted to see a video like this, and these videos are super fun to make, and I just like talking about my aquariums. So if you guys have any questions about this tank, please let me know, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching. Some of my, what was I gonna call them? So this tank, why,